Hello, welcome to episode 14 of the Ski Instructor Podcast. I haven't included 13 because it is unlucky. My name's Dave Burrows. I'm a director of Snowsports Ski School based here in the Swiss Alps, and I bring you a festive edition of the podcast and one that I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. So yesterday I travelled to Megeve to meet Simon Butler. Some of you may or may not know who Simon Butler is. But Simon is the ski instructor, quite infamous, I'd say now. But he's the guy that's been fighting a legal case against the French and also the British Association of Ski Instructors for some time now, and he's just had a victory in the French courts, which has sort of exonerated everything and confirmed everything that he's been saying for the last 7 years or so since his situation arose. Now, Simon, I feel, has been much maligned. I look and I see on social media and in the media in general, everyone and their dog has got an opinion about Simon, but none have really taken the time to find out who he is and what his story is. And I thought what I wanted to do, for the benefit of all of us, I think, is to have a word or go and have a chat with Simon and get from him, straight from the horse's mouth, his story from start to finish. So that's what I've attempted to do with this podcast and this interview here. So what follows is my attempt to have an on-the-record discussion with Simon of exactly what went down from the moment that he was kind of first arrested on the slopes and all of the subsequent legal battles that followed that. And that's what you're going to hear in part one. And my role really, as I saw it, is I'm not here to put opinion in. I try to keep my opinions and emotions out of this. It's just a pure statement of fact or Simon's story, a telling of Simon's side of the story. And that's what I did. I travelled to Megeve and I met Simon. He'd just come off the slopes from a morning of teaching, and this was the subsequent sit-down discussion that we had. Now, that's going to be the first half, and then somewhere in the middle I'm going to see you again, and then we're going to talk about what follows after that. I'd like to thank you all for listening and wish you all a Merry Christmas as well. We've just blasted past about 13,000 downloads of this podcast across all of the series, which I think is amazing. I can't believe that many people are interested in this, but there you are. Yes, so enjoy this one. I think it humanises Simon a little bit. He's not the devil that everyone makes him out to be. He's just a guy that seems to be trying to get on with his business, and that's where we are. So here we go. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for welcoming me to Megeve. Simon Butler, how are you?
Pleasure, Dave. Yeah, pleasure. Good to see you here.
The famous Simon Butler.
Well,
Infamous,
yeah.
Infamous, which is a shame. What I wanted to do with this podcast, with this episode of the podcast, there's been so much said about you, written about you, opinions of people who have never met you. It's the second time I ever met you. We met on a lift.
That's right.
When you were racing,
yeah. I was just about to do a Masters race.
You were just about to do a Masters race. So what happened was, listener, I was standing there in the queue. Someone said, "Yeah, Simon Butler." Like, oh. And something possessed me to go. I skied as quick as I could just to get round the queue and go next to you. I said, "Do you mind if I just come up with you?" So I've not met you before. Introduced myself and up we went. So we had 8 minutes, and you told me your story. And I couldn't believe it. I
remember it, Dave. I remember.
Yeah. And the bit that got me the most about it was not so much the legality, but it was how it had wrecked your business operations here.
Yeah.
And that struck me as really, really malicious. Something horrible had gone on.
Yeah.
I expect we'll come to that later. But that was my overriding impression. And I wished you well, and you went on your way and you raced the Masters, and that was cool. And hopefully we'll touch on that later, because I think there's more to you than meets the eye, for sure. That's my overriding impression. But what I wanted to do with this podcast was I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell completely your side of the story, without any spin, without any opinion from people from both sides. Just literally let this be a factual document of what has happened to you, and we go from there.
Okay.
Does that sound all right?
That's fine.
Now, listener, for those of you that don't know, Simon is quite, I'd say, infamous as a man who has taken on and recently finally won your court case against the French. Do you want to? Let's start with that. So, what judgment have you just recently received from the French court?
It's been a long time coming. We've just had the final decision from the appeal court. Mm-hmm. This was against a victory that we had over 3 years ago in the administrative court in Lyon, which we'd won, and French administration weren't happy with that result, and so they appealed. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we were still able to work. So we didn't have to stop working again, so we were able to work while we waited for their appeal to come through. That appeal was only heard at the end of last season in April, actually April the 4th. Mm-hmm. And we were told there'd be about a month before we would have that final decision. After which there were no more appeals. This was it. Mm-hmm. So we waited a long time, and I think it was just the week before last, so it was 8 or 9 months later, we finally got that decision, to which we won. When I say we, it's not just myself. There were several other instructors all working in our team at the time at various levels, from 2 to 4. They have all won as well. So just
to interject there, that's British level. So my role in this, I'll tell you this now, is I'm just going to try and keep everything straight, factual, on the thing. So, and also I'll interject when we talk about levels, because there's people not just British that listen to this, they're all over the place. So British levels 2, 3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So they all won their cases as individuals, and they all have their own individual paperwork to show that.
Okay.
So we were absolutely delighted with that, because while there's an appeal, even though you've won the initial case, but while there's appeal, there's a sort of cloud over it, and you can never be 100% sure. So we were absolutely delighted to receive that decision, which now means we're good to go, as are all other members up to level 2s.
Okay. And this is the big bone of contention, isn't it? That this is the advice that has been given to British Association and other associations, I guess, members before, has said that in order to work in France, you need to have ISTD level 4 or equivalent in other organisation, plus Eurotest.
Absolutely, that's what you're told. That isn't the law.
No, and this is what you just proved, no?
You're just proving it. This isn't anything new, by the way. Mm-hmm. Just because this judgment has just come out. We've known this for years, as have my association, BSki. They've known for a long time. But they've been taking their advice from the very people we've been up against in court, which is unfortunate, and really should have been taking advice somewhere else. Now, I had my advice from Brussels. I didn't listen to what I was being told. I wanted to know what was factual. So I've been to Brussels. In fact, I've been to Brussels 6 times and Strasbourg once for meetings at the EU. And it was made extremely clear to me that yes, if you had your level 4 and you had your Eurotest, you were just free to move around straight away. If you didn't have that, the levels prior to that level, 2s and 3s, could still work in France, but they needed to go through the directive, which is in place, and it will take a little bit longer, but you're still fully entitled to be able to come and work in France. Unfortunately, no one had gone through that. In fact, no one had actually successfully filled in their dossier and gone through the directive, because everyone believed what they were being told. which is to go through. You have to have, as you were saying, the Euro test and your ISTD if you're on the British system, which was never the case.
It never used to. There used to be. I remember even when I got into the industry, it was only about 10 years ago, that you could work in France as a stagiaire.
Yes.
With a lower level.
Yeah, I believe you still can. I think other levels can still do that. As far as I'm aware, there's a time limit to that.
Yeah.
And during that time limit, you can undergo training to achieve the Euro test and the higher levels, so you can become independent if you wished.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. There is a time limit on that. But to be able to work, you don't need to do that. The problem has been people have seen it as an equivalent system. But it isn't. It's a recognition system. Yeah, so you have to declare. This is how the system works in the directive. You declare yourself. The French authorities have a month. Things have changed a little bit as well now because it's updated. Yeah. But this is still the case. They have a time limit to respond to your declaration. If that time limit expires before they have actually just written back to you acknowledging your dossier, that's it. You're declared. You can work.
You're good to go.
You're good to go. But if they do write back to you and say, yes, we've received your dossier, we're now going to be reviewing it, that's fine. They then review it.
Just before you carry on, so let's just really clarify this for the benefit of everyone who's going to be listening. If I'm a Johnny ski instructor and I want to come and work in France, is that for a ski school? This isn't setting up my own ski school. It's not right of establishment. That's something different. If I just want to come here and work as a ski instructor and I want to work for Simon Butler Ski School, say, all I have to do is fill in the right bit of paper, declare myself, and if the French state doesn't respond within that 30 days with an objection, I'm good to go.
You are, yes.
Okay.
But if they do respond, which they are now doing, that gives them more time to review your dossier. Now, when they review that, they can then state that there is a substantial difference between your qualification and that of the host nation.
Yeah.
But they can't just say there is. They have to prove there is. They've still to this day never done that.
No.
Yeah, so they have to prove there is a substantial difference. And let's remember the term substantial. This isn't a small difference or a moderate difference. It has to be substantial. And once they've done that, they can either say there's a substantial difference and identify it, or issue you with your carte professionnelle.
Right.
If they can prove a substantial difference, they then have to ask for your experience. And if you have a certain amount of experience, I'm not 100% sure what it is on the new directive, which is 2013 56. If you have, as it was then, 2 years of work that you can prove, that will compensate, your experience will compensate the substantial difference in qualification. And again, they must issue you with your carte professionnelle.
So we'll go back to Johnny ski instructor example. Let's say he's worked in, let's say he's gone to Switzerland, he's got 3 or 4 or 5 seasons under his belt already.
Yes. And
he gets offered a job by you in France or something like that. He can declare himself. If they come back and they say, oh no, there's a big difference between what you've got and our level.
Yes.
He can say, well, hang on a minute, I've been working in Switzerland for 5 seasons. And he
they have
declares
to
his
ask
experience.
for it.
Yeah.
They have to ask for it. And that, if he can prove that with the experience, first of all, that they have to prove that there is a substantial difference.
Yeah.
But if that is proven, then the experience will compensate for the substantial difference.
Yeah. And then the same outcome.
Yes, and the same outcome, carte professionnelle. If, and only if, they've proven a substantial difference and the experience of the informer, because that's what you're doing, you're informing them. You're not requesting, you are the informant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're informing them you're coming to work on the French territory. Yeah, if the informant has not got the experience to compensate a proven substantial difference, then French authorities can send them to the Euro test.
Yes.
That's where the Euro test comes in. at the end of the declaration process.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what the French have done deliberately, and unfortunately our association in BSki have gone along with it, is they've put the Euro test right at the start of the declaration process.
Sure.
So you have to have it just to enter, which is not the law.
Is this? You're talking about EU law?
No, this is
this is within French.
This is French law. French law has been transposed from the EU law. So that's it. It's one and the same thing. Okay. So it's always been in place. We haven't proven anything new. We've just got. Eventually, it's taken a long time, but we've got the laws that were in place to actually come down and work.
So the civil servants that are running this process have effectively been doing their own interpretation of the law. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's what's happened. It's got muddied and clouded as it comes down from, as I explained, I don't know if you know, I've had a meeting with Mr. Barnier back in 2013. But back in the EU, in that European Parliament, everything works perfectly. But as it filters down to national and a regional, local, and where I am, down at the very bottom at grassroots level, it gets muddied and dirtied and completely different down there compared with where it was up here. And somewhere along the line, it's all changed, conveniently.
Okay. Now, so that's what has been proven over these last 5 years.
Yes.
Is it all right if we jump back to what got you into this, what happened to get you into this sort of 5-year legal battle in the first place?
Yes.
So my understanding is that you and your qualifications are part of this grandfathered arrangement that a lot of instructors and high up people within the BSki organisation benefited from. There was a group of 200 or so,
approximately, I think,
instructors that were grandfathered into the system, given full, what would you call it, professional equivalence or whatever. Back at the signing of this agreement called the Satolas agreement, and you were on that list.
Yes, the original list. Yeah,
you were on the original list. And listener, I have seen a document today that verifies that.
Yeah.
So do you want to take it from there? How did all of this situation transpire? This is just for the record, so that everybody knows that it's not just Simon trying to burn the establishment down just because he's that kind of guy. A situation has happened, and I want it on record so that people know.
Yeah, no, not at all. BSki has been, fantastic for me. I've loved being a member of BSki and joining it. I was a member. In fact, I think I'm still possibly the youngest member to have passed at a BSki 3 level. I was just 16 in a couple of weeks, and it was fantastic. And so I've gone through the BSki system back then. That was 1979. So then I went to level 2 as it was then, and then level 1. And I've thoroughly enjoyed doing all of those exams. And when we changed from being that 3-2-1 system, around the same time as all these new laws were coming into place, and the Euro test and new components to our examinations were being brought in, was when the old BSki 1s of that time were basically upgraded to the new level 4 ISTD, and there was a list of all those guys and girls that were on that, and I was on that list. Somehow I got removed from that list. I never know why, but I know the reason. I was told that it was because whoever was dealing with it at the time thought that I was working in Andorra, which I've never worked in Andorra, and therefore didn't need to be given the equivalence to work in France. I'd been in France at that stage about 18 years. But that's how it happened. But the CEO at the time sorted it out, and a couple of years later he asked me to do this was Ray Morris, asked me to take the off-piste course, just to come into line, which I duly did, and everything was fine.
Okay. And so we carry on. You're running. So I'm sitting here in Simon's hotel in Megeve. You have an operation here that presumably your guests come to ski with you, but they also stay here in the hotel,
Yes.
as I understand it.
Yeah.
That's quite a big operation. Indeed, it was. You were at another hotel also that you showed me earlier. And so you've been running that operation now for many years, right?
Yes.
I don't know, how many years is it?
I've been here in Megeve now 36 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it makes me feel really old.
Yeah, it makes me feel really young. So based on that, and you've been doing the whole hotel ski thing for that entire time?
Yeah, I haven't been in this place. It's built up over the years. I started with one small chalet which took about 14 people back then, and it sort of evolved as I was a young guy then, and my clients were sort of that same sort of age group. I've still got many of those guests who come now, and they've got families, and so it's evolved, and we've evolved and improved and listened to what our guests want, and we do a lot of sort of forms which they can fill out and give us ideas and things of where they're going, and we sort of adapt and evolve with their needs, and that's how we've worked.
Okay. And how many people roughly are coming through your operation sort of annually here, or at its peak, before all this difficulty?
Before the problems, we were averaging between virtually the same every year, because we were full, all depending if you've got 3 people in a room or 2 people in the rooms were full. We averaged between about 1,650 and 1,700 people a season, and now we're about 700. Just over 700.
Okay.
Because of the problems that we've had. Yeah.
And in fact, one of the seasons, you had to relocate the entire operation to totally, Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, so leading up to that point, you're running a super successful operation here in Megeve. You've got literally thousands of people coming here to ski with you and stay in your hotel. At what point did it all kick off? For one of a better phrase. Yeah,
we'd had a few issues over the years, and with arrests. I think the first problems were back in the 90s, actually, in places like Lesezi. I was arrested over there, but generally they all seem to get settled back down again, and after a week or so, and everything restored to normal.
What was that stuff in Lesezi for? Is it the same thing?
Same thing, but
British guy teaching on our slopes.
Well, I think back in those days, nobody really knew what the laws were. We all knew we were in Europe, but nobody really had an idea of what was going on. Who
Phil
was
talked about that. He said it was a bit, in the first episode, he said it looked a bit like the Wild West.
Which was understandable. And in all honesty, I could understand some of the French getting upset, because I can remember being over in Lesezi, and I'm not going to name the companies that were there, but they had a multitude of instructors who actually had, I think they were leaders, or they'd done an ASSI, which was the artificial slope qualification back in the UK. They didn't have a basic qualification, some of them, at all, which was fairly obvious. And you can understand them getting a bit irate about that, and they come out and arrest everyone, and I sort of got caught in that big net, and those were the initial problems. But moving forward, we had some big problems in 2013 when we were all arrested, in 2014 when we were actually locked up.
Right.
I spent 2 days in the police custody, a night in jail, and and then we were stopped. We had an arrest put on us. So if we had
on the skiing or the hotel,
on the skiing track, we had turned back up on the slopes with anyone, they would then lock us up indefinitely. Right. So that was it. Everything ceased.
So back in, let's say, 2013, so we go back to that one. Now, the circumstances that led up to that, was it a surprise? Because I'd heard literally that at that point, this is only what I'd heard, that Basie had issued you your license, but it did not have this little stamp that it needed to have on it.
Yeah, the MOU
and then
stamp.
Conveniently, in the following days, weeks, months, the police came. Now, what is there any truth to that? What was the story of all this stuff leading up to 2013? Why did it all happen then?
In 2013, we were all arrested, and I was released because back then I did have the MOU stamp.
Oh, right.
Because it was issued. That was the first year the MOU stamp was there, Memorandum of Understanding.
What about the others?
No, the others didn't.
Right.
They didn't have that. Well, one other did, because they were a level 4. So one other did, and that was fine. And I was arrested, taken down to the police station, had my licence, showed the stamp. I was let go. I was released. It worked, did its job. The others didn't, and they were detained. But they were released whilst inquiries were taking place. Fortunately, this happened sort of mid to late March, so we were able to complete that season. Yeah. And then following that, the following season is where I had linked up with Jean-Yves Lapeyrere, who you may know, and who is an absolute expert in this field.
100%, yeah.
And we went to see him, had meetings there. I also had meetings at the EU in Brussels to find out exactly what was the legal requirements. And that's when our dossiers for each individual were created. And I'm telling you, they're quite substantial.
I would imagine they're quite big, but
yes, they're quite big. And we don't miss, dotting an I, crossing a T. If French authorities can actually refuse your dossier for anything, they will do so.
Yes.
Anything. The line's not quite right. So we get it done by an expert, and that was Jean-Yves. So he produced dossiers for each individual, all of us, and they were all filed that summer in the 2013, so that we would not have this problem again. Yeah. We've got clarity from the EU, from Michel Barnier's team, who was French Commissioner at the time, and his team, what the legal situation was. So we've done it. We've done it to the letter, and we followed it through. But it was then that following season is when they've come down really hard and arrested a lot of us right in the middle of half term. I was sitting on a chairlift at the time with guests either side of me, and I had 5 gendarmes and 3 civil servants surround me. They were going to put handcuffs on me, but of course I was very willing and friendly and happy to go with them, and so that wasn't necessary. And taken down to the nearest road and put in a police van with the sirens blazing and whisked off at high speed to Megeve police station, where I was locked up.
Amazing. Now at this point, so you declared yourself at 2014 season.
Yes.
When your license came, so the licensing gets done by BSki, and everyone gets sent out this little card with a license on it. At the start, so that would be for the 2013-2014 season, or 2014-2015 season?
That would have been for the 13-14 season, the following one.
Now, I'd heard that your card didn't come through the MOU stamp that season.
It didn't, but what happened, as had happened the year before on other seasons, my card actually, for some reason, comes through a bit late. So I've never worried about it. I know it's always going to be there. I've paid my subs, so I'm not, that concerned. And as happened this season, after I was arrested, I showed my previous year's card, and they said, "No, where's your this year?" I said, "Well, it hasn't arrived yet, but you can see I've got everything. It's just due to arrive." So I actually picked up the phone and called the BSki office, and I spoke to. It was the acting CEO, Stephen Burke, I think it was at the time. And I said, could you please send me my new licence I'm desperate for with my stamp, please, because I've been controlled on the slopes and I need to show my up-to-date licence. And I was told that it would be sent, but there was no stamp going to be attached to it. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, you're not entitled to it. I said, well, I am entitled to it. I'm a level 4. Had it the year before, right? I said, and I've had it the year before. He said, and I can remember, he said, have you? I said, yes. Yeah, I've had it the year before. What are you doing? Right. He said, I didn't know that. He said, I'll go and find out. Anyway, So that took several days. I'm now locked up. I get out a couple of days later, and I receive a letter from Dave Renouf telling me that I'm not going to be getting my MOU stamp because I'm not entitled to it, as I haven't taken the Euro test. So as you can imagine, I'm
confused,
very unhappy, wondering how all my other colleagues have got it who haven't done the Euro test, including Mr. Renouf himself. And I phoned them up. I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, you haven't done the Euro test. I said, no, that's right, I haven't. I said, I passed 16 years before it was in existence. What are you doing? I said, I've been arrested. I just need that and everything's resolved. No, they said, no, it won't be coming. You're not entitled to it and you won't be getting it. You didn't receive the exemption. I said, well, I did receive the exemption. I said, I've got it in writing from Mr. Morris back in, 2001, 2, whenever it was. But anyway, the long and the short of it was that they weren't going to issue it to me, and I had to bear the consequence of not having it. So that was the first I heard of not having the MOU stamp. It was, after I was arrested.
Yeah.
There was no warning prior to the season starting, or even in the early part of the season starting. This is February. February the 26th, actually, after I'd been arrested. And although I'm jumping on a little bit, what was very upsetting is that in court, BSki had to reveal their evidence, and they had to reveal to my legal team a letter that Mr. Renouf had written to his French counterpart in January of that year, telling them that Mr. Butler wasn't going to be receiving an MOU stamp, and hope this helps you with your inquiries. So I felt really set up, and I did mention that in court. I felt like, and I quoted, I felt like I was being thrown to the lions.
It's hard to draw, when you see that, it's hard to draw any other conclusion, isn't it?
Very much so. I had no knowledge that the stamp wasn't going to be issued to me, but before I was told, the French authorities were told.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound right to me.
Okay, so we're gonna come back maybe to that later on, because I think that's really interesting to members of the British organisation as to the if we're allowed to talk about it, the details of your court case with them. Whilst you were arrested that second time, this sort of dramatic arrest thing, that if this is a small mountain village, so presumably everyone knows everyone, and
yes.
the gendarme in the way that all these mountain villages work, didn't need to be that dramatic, I guess. But what happened then to the rest of your instructors who didn't have this, or previously have the MOU stamp on their thing? The guys.
The rest
level
of them,
twos,
the level
and
twos and threes. Yeah. Well, they were all stopped as well, and I was actually in the same boat as them because I didn't have the stamp. So that
despite their declaration.
Yeah, despite their declarations.
And their declarations had been done, and they hadn't received a response within the required 30 days.
Some of them had, some of them hadn't.
Okay.
And it was that all of them at level 2s and 3s, they were all given the same response, the ones that received it. And that was that their level 2 there was a substantial difference.
Okay.
Now, that was the same letter. It was literally a copy-paste same letter to even the guys that had level 3s.
Okay.
They were told their level 2s weren't the substantial
right.
difference. So it was just a standard thing that went out, and some of them didn't receive anything at all. So, according to the law, they're good to go. But this is how it was, and they were coming down hard. And I can remember being taken in and out of my cell at the police station from downstairs to be interviewed. And I walked past a room which was ajar, and there was a huge board with all of our photographs on it, locations where to look, the areas where we might be, what we'd be wearing, pictures of us. It was a well planned, well thought out hit on us, and at the worst possible time of the year, as you can imagine, in the middle of half term. They knew just what they were doing. But the other guys, just like me, that was it. We couldn't work. That was
even those other guys who were at the slightly lower level.
Yes.
You had you had done the declaration, some of it had come back, and presumably your lawyer had gone back and said, well, look, these guys have X amount of experience.
Well, no, that we hadn't even got to that stage.
Okay.
You see, hadn't even got to, and it still never has got to the stage of them asking for our experience. That hasn't happened. We were simply stopped, and there was a document from the préfet, Mr. Bobo, who's the préfet, just stating an arrêt. So
Right.
there is no going back. We cannot set foot on the slopes and teach anyone.
Okay.
That was it. We then had to go through a legal process to prove that we were correct and that we were legal. We had to start that process,
So that,
which we did.
So that's the next stage. So there you are, February half term, hotel full of people, no one to teach them, not an instructor to be found anywhere in Megeve, presumably.
Well, I
to do
did.
that
I managed to find instructors. We actually used some of my instructors who'd worked with us in the past, had formed, some of them set up their own operations and things, and I was able to employ some other instructors. I wasn't going to let the guests that we had down, and whatever it took, I was going to make sure that they had their sessions each day. So I was able to get out and just about get things together. I had to get a lot of French independence and things like that, which wasn't great, but we got through it.
Okay. Now, so then what happens after that? Because then it goes legal. You have to presumably defend yourself against this legal process that's been launched against you.
Yeah.
Where does it go from there? How does it?
Well, what happened then? We had a case to answer from French administration after our arrest, because they had to take us to court, which was a criminal court in Bonneville, and that was at the end of the season, late April. I wasn't allowed to leave the country. I had to stay here in Megeve. I had to sign in at the police station every Saturday morning to sign in. I was honestly treated like, I don't know, somebody that committed murder. Right. I wasn't even allowed to return home, and I'd requested at the gendarmerie, and they apologised for it, because I know lots of these guys. I play football with them. They're just doing their job. But I had one of my guests, a good friend of mine, who died, and I wasn't even allowed to return back for the day for a funeral. That's how bad it was. Yeah. And it was an awful time, and as you can imagine, it put a lot of stress and strain, and mentally wasn't very good. So I wasn't allowed to leave the country, even at the end of the season, when everyone was packing up and heading back home. I had to stay here and wait for the court case. Which I did. At the same time, my legal team had already applied to the administrative court in Lyon for our case, which is to review our dossiers, to confirm that we were legal, that everything we had done was correct, which is the result we've just recently had. That's how long it's taken. So that was ongoing. We had to wait for that. In the meantime, we had the court case in Bonneville at the end of the season. I was found guilty very quickly. I was given a sentence of 6 months, or it was so many days, but it was equivalent to about 6 months jail time, which was a horrendous thought. And so I immediately, my legal team put in an appeal straight away, so that I didn't have to go and serve that.
That was just for you, or for the others?
Just for me, because I was the others were all found guilty as well, but they weren't given any jail time.
But is it because they were working under your umbrella?
Yes.
So as the responsible person,
I'm the responsible person,
and you get it in the neck, which is that's my understanding.
That's
of it
right.
Too.
So they were all they were all back in the UK now, and I was here, and then after that case, the appeal went in, and then I was given, I was then allowed to leave the country, but I had to then go back for the appeal, which was in Chambéry later that year.
Okay, so this finds you somewhere in the middle of 2014.
Yes.
Okay, responsible for that's gone on. Did you actually spend any time in the jail, or was it
2
sort of
days.
deferred? Okay, crikey. And then fair play to you, by the way. Okay, so
you're a bit shocked.
I'm ski teaching, man.
I know. You can't believe it.
Yeah. There you are, 2014. You've appealed your case. You've got to go back to Chambéry, to the court there.
Yes.
What happens then?
But I had the legal team. I was working very closely with Jean-Yves, Philippe Planès, and I was very confident in their abilities and their knowledge. And having also been to the EU and found out for myself directly, I was very confident that we were actually following the legal route.
It's true. I mean, I've also spoken to Jean-Yves separately on other unrelated matters, and he's extremely convincing in what he says and what he believes, and he can tell you anything to do with the procedure and what's actually supposed to be in place. But it's another step entirely for you to actually go there and verify it for yourself to make sure that is, he's not just saying that.
No,
and
absolutely.
he's not. It's true.
No, I wanted to follow that through as well myself. So, as you say, very convincing. But I wanted to find that out, and I did. What it needed, and I wasn't somebody wanting to put myself up as the fall guy, really, at all.
You're right.
It was just the situation I was in. But what
they
happened,
forced you into this situation.
Absolutely.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't get. Whoever engineered this situation that you found yourself into, it's silly, really. You think about it, it's silly. The amount of money it's cost.
Yeah.
All for a little badge on a thing.
I know.
You issue that, it's
and
all
also,
right.
I'm not actually operating as a separate ski school. We only take and ski with the people that we bring out here.
You're effectively a club.
Yeah, we're not doing anything else, and I have no intention, never have had, of going anywhere else. I've been just here. That was it.
Nowhere to find you.
I don't have any. I still don't want to go anywhere else. I'm happy here. We're only taking the people that we bring out on holiday with us. We're not out there touting for business from anywhere else. No. It was madness.
We talked to Scott about that because he runs a business exactly like that. Which was, he takes guests to different ski resorts, skis with them there, and he just does the declaration process when he gets there, and it's okay for a certain number of days, and okay. All right, so there you are, 2014, Chambéry Appeals Court. What happens at that?
Well, what happened there, which was very interesting. I think initially they thought that maybe I might just go away and never return, but that wasn't going to be the case. I felt that I was being intimidated and bullied, and that's never going to work. I'm not going to accept that, and so I did put everything behind this case.
Yeah.
But myself and financially, I put everything because I believed in it, and I was confident that we were following that legal path correctly.
Yeah.
So we turned up at Chambéry Court and we pleaded our case, and the judge there was actually very good in the fact he didn't find in our favour, but he didn't find in the administration's favour either. He wanted to wait until the higher court in Lyon, the administrative court, where we were waiting for our case, he wanted to find out what that decision was going to be. And he was going to base his decision on that. On that decision, which was sound.
Yeah.
We came out of there thinking, well, this is good.
Sensible,
this is sensible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it still left me in a position where I couldn't work. Because the arrest was still in place.
Yeah.
But at least we left there with some hope and thinking, well, actually, they are actually going through the right process here.
And the administrative court was the one that is making the decision on the dossiers that you'd sent in.
Yes, it's based purely on the law.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not interested in someone's desire to do a Euro test, or somebody else wants you to do this, or some little local. They're not interested. It's just straightforward. What is the law? That's it.
So there you are. So that is when? Late on autumn 2014?
Yes, that was 2014.
So 2014-2015 season is approaching.
Yes.
You've still got the business running. You're taking bookings, presumably still.
Yes.
What do you do with your operation that year?
Well, we were still here. We had to close down one of the hotels, which was just desperate for me. A huge loss financially. We had to walk away from that.
Was that because you needed the funds to
absolutely
cover off all of this other
had
stuff?
to have funds to cover all the other things. So that was an enormous loss. I had a lot of commitment financially in that.
Not only that, but it limits your capacity to this one hotel, right?
Yeah, the other one
so
was
that you're
bigger.
just denying people the opportunity to ski.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
You. Okay.
So I had two ISTDs who worked alongside me who had got their MOU stamps and Kart Pros. So they were here, and we brought in another couple. So they were able to hold the fort here, whilst I took two other members, so there was three of us in total, over to Switzerland, where we had no problem at all setting up. Filled in our work permits, and we were able to work there alongside an international school in Crans-Montana, which was somewhere I knew well. And we took clients over there, and that's where I based myself that season. Which was we talk about the financial costs, but the costs that was to my family, because they were based here and my young children, when I'm having to go over there,
it's a long way to Cran from here.
It was immense, and that was awful. I think I mentioned that to you when I sat with you on the chairlift. I'm having to nip between both.
It's awful. Yeah. No, okay. And so you muddled through that season.
Yes.
And you're still waiting at this point for that administrative court to make its decision.
Still waiting for that administrative court decision.
Okay. When does that eventually come?
3 years.
What?
3 years.
Wait, so all of this time you've just been waiting?
No, from when we heard the case, but we had to wait for 3 years to have the case heard.
Oh, come on.
No, 3 years. So I couldn't work for 3 years.
That's what's been happening all this time?
Yeah. Not up to now.
Yeah.
That was back then. So from 2014, 15,
16. Right.
So I based myself in Cran, but flitted between the two, and I just couldn't do that another year and be away from the family for long. So I didn't do it the following season. So I just stayed here. I went and skied around with some of the guests, just free skied. And what the main thing that I was able to do was they couldn't stop me skiing with my kids. So I was able to really focus on them and get out training with them, setting gates and training, GS and slalom and doing all that race training with them, which was fantastic. So in that respect, it was great. But what was so difficult was just saying cheerio to the guests, because I love being out there teaching. Absolutely love it. I'm passionate about it. I really enjoy it. And that's what I was missing, and not being able to do that. Going out on the slopes, sorting out who's with who, and saying cheerio and off they go was pretty tough. Okay, I buy that. If you're really, I agree with you. I'm coming to the same thing with my own ski school, in that I think I'm having to just to keep up with the admin and the growth and stuff. Like you've got to sometimes take a step back. And these last few days I've been over in Villar, and actually doing this kind of other role, which is quite cool. You sort of just go around, shake people's hands, kind of make you feel good, meet and greet people, meet all the the restaurant owners, and see people you see on the slopes. It's quite nice, actually. It's very nice. And it's an important part of the job. But if it's just that, for me, I like doing all of that. But when you can't do what you really want to do, that's what I want to do. It's difficult, but anyway, we got through it, and we finally had the judgment from the French Administrative Court in Lyon after the 3 years, which was our victory. We won.
Okay, great.
That was all out there. We won. Fantastic.
And that's in 2017?
16.
Okay.
So we've won, and that's it. Everything that was said about us and the legalities of why we were stopped were all overturned, squashed, and we'd won. We were back on the slopes. It was fantastic that season.
So that was for 20. So you won. That was in 2016. So you're on the slopes again then for 16-17 season.
Yes.
Right.
Fantastic.
Great
Such
news.
a relief.
Okay.
And happy days.
And that was just straight up victory. No appeal.
No, they did appeal.
Oh, they did appeal. Right.
They did appeal.
Of course. Yeah.
They appealed.
They being the French state
administration.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was appealed. Just because anybody, whoever it is, or an organisation, just because there's an appeal, actually doesn't mean that your judgment has been overturned.
Right.
That judgment is still in place. That is the decision. All that meant is we weren't going to get issued with any paperwork to say, yes, here's your Kart Pro.
Oh, so it's a way of them blocking the actual papers.
Yes, but nonetheless, we had the decision and we had those court papers on us. Mm-hmm. So one of my instructors came back who had been arrested, just one. The others were still very concerned.
Don't blame them.
When you've been arrested in that way we were, they're very concerned about it, and I understood. And also we'd had a couple of seasons now working with our, we have a chap from Austria and Slovenia who have got their MOU stamps and Kart Pros, and it was working nicely, and so we just kept it like that.
Yeah.
And I was back on the slopes, and it was fine. But again, we had this cloud hanging over us with this appeal. But we were able to work, so all the time that was okay.
And what happens with the other criminal case? Because you said to me earlier that he was going to take his reference from the administrative case. What happens to that? Is that just sitting there doing anything?
I tell you, there's so many things going on.
Well, this is why I'm here. I'm the.
I know it's difficult maybe for people to keep up with it. You know, I know this inside out.
Yes.
You know, this has been my life, unfortunately, for several years.
What I try to do with the podcast is I try to put myself in the shoes of the listener.
Yes.
So I'm imagining, a version of myself sitting in my car, thinking I would want to say, well, what happened to that?
Yes.
You know, so I'm trying to be that person. So
what happened to that, which was extremely important, the appeal court in Chambéry, because I've still got this criminal conviction hanging over my head with a 6-month jail sentence. Yeah. Which
so if you go up on the slopes again and you're arrested for teaching, you are going directly to jail.
Yes.
That will be the way it
but
would
I can now because we've won at the higher court.
Right.
So everything's been quashed. But this other court in Chambéry, with our initial appeal on our criminal charges, is still going on.
Okay.
And what happened, we would go back literally every 6 months.
Yeah.
And the judge would ask, okay, have we got the decision from the administrative court yet? Mm-hmm. And we would say, no, we still haven't had it. Because remember, I said it took 3 years for that.
Okay.
So we went back there, and you may find this amusing. I didn't. We went back there several times, and on each occasion we said no, both parties, French administration, ourselves, no, we haven't had that decision yet. The judge, and it's the same judge every time, would say, okay, we will postpone until this date, and it was usually another 6 months.
Yeah.
And we got back on the one but last occasion, and we've turned up at Chambéry for the date, and it was a different judge, and both parties asked, what had happened, and the previous judge has gone on so long he's just retired. So I know, he's retired, and there was a new judge.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So this is on this case. So the new judge just came in and said, well, I'm not going to wait for the administrative court. You're all guilty.
Oh.
And that was it. End of story.
Okay.
However, we've already got a victory at a higher court.
Now, is there a ranking in courts in France?
Yes,
is that how it works?
Yes, there is. There's like first instance, second instance. So
he can't say that?
Yeah, so the courts we were at were Bonneville and then Chambéry, Lyon, and then obviously Paris. You're going up, and that's the highest court. So Court of Cassation is right up there, Paris. So what happened? That file from this judge's decision in Chambéry was sort of countered the higher court's decision. So my lawyers sent it to the Court of Cassation in Paris, where it happened a little quicker, where the judge in Paris at Court of Cassation sent it back and said, you've made an error here, sort it out and get it right.
Okay.
So that all went back. But it went back to Lyon. Then we've then had the appeal from French administration on the winning decision we'd had. Are you with this now so far?
I have to say I was zoning out a little bit. No, keep going. Yeah.
So that case came up this year in April.
What?
Yeah, only this year.
Right.
Their appeal was heard.
Okay.
Yeah, their appeal was heard. Yeah, we've been working those 3 years.
Yeah.
Afterwards, no problem because we'd won. Yeah, but now their appeal is being heard. April 4th. So at the end of towards the end of the season. So I'm there, and we've put our case together, and that went very, very well. And even with my limited French, I could understand that it went pretty well. And anyway, we left, and the court reporter, I remember, even recommended to the judge at that case that the first decision was sound and should be upheld. And we were told 1 month for the decision. So we've waited our 1 month nothing. In fact, we're now back in the UK. This is just this summer. Doing all our things. I've had a hip replacement, and all these things have gone on, and we finally get that decision because I'm sorry to go back to another court case, but the one where the Paris judge has sent it back, that's now come up.
That's the criminal one.
Yeah, that's the criminal one, where the initial judge was waiting and the new judge found us guilty. It's come back to there. That case has come back up, and the judge there has said, where is the administrative court's decision on the French appeal? Where is it? You've been waiting 8 months. And we've said, we know. We don't know.
You're telling me something I know.
We're desperate for it.
Yeah.
He said, right, I want both parties to write to the administrative court to get this decision because we need it. We need this appeal, their appeal decision.
Need that decision to make the administrative decision to make the criminal decision.
Yes. Fine. Yeah. So both parties have wrote. My lawyer's been writing to them regularly, phoning them. Yeah. But anyway, lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, bang! This is all that when this has happened. That we've received that decision, an unequivocal victory for us. So
their appeal kicked out, or
their appeal lost.
Fine, done.
Lost. Original decision upheld.
They can't appeal an appeal. It's finished.
That's it. It's finished.
Finally
done. And as I've mentioned earlier, each individual. So it wasn't just en masse. Myself, we're all named separately. We all have our own judgment individually. All victorious, all won.
Now, I'm going to put a pause on the administrative decision. How does that affect the criminal decision?
Right, the criminal decision is now based on this decision. That's what they've been waiting for. So we actually still have to go through the formality of turning up in February.
Okay.
To have them.
And the man says, this is all rubbish.
Yes. Well, he's going to now take that administrative court decision.
Okay.
That's what he's.
But that's just effectively a rubber stamping exercise now.
Absolutely. The main court, which is the higher one, has already made that decision. It's a stronger decision than at the first instance court.
Now, jumping back to the administrative decision, so your dossiers of them being, after so many years, have all been recognised, in effect, as valid.
Well, they have been. They're still live. Our original dossiers.
Oh, right.
We're not actually having to enter another one.
No.
Because all of us produced those dossiers back, 13, 14, as I said. So they are all still live and current. In fact, if we were to produce another one, it would nullify those and they'd start again, which we don't want to do. We do not want to do that. So those are our dossiers. They're still alive. They're still in process. We're still waiting to receive them. I've been waiting for a dossier from back in 2001 for it's been in there about 19 years, but we're all still waiting for.
And then what will happen? So the outcome of this, if there's no real reason, then why will not be sent your car professional in the post?
No, our lawyer has written to them. He's actually given them a time limit. Wants them within the month, really.
Will you report back to us when it drops on the desk? Not only for you, but for the and I'll get you on the phone and we'll slip it into another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
When that document is there, please let me know.
Absolutely.
Because I want people to believe that this is real. And the only way that they'll believe that the whole process is seeing is believing. And I used to say that, I think it was to your guy, Alex, and this is when I was Alex Casey.
Yes,
He's quite shook up by this whole thing.
Oh, very much.
Hi to Alex if you're there. And I used to be on the other side of the fence. I'd be like, no, this guy Simon's a bad guy. whatever.
Yeah.
And I always just say the same thing to him. I said, if you think you're in the right, you let me know. Let me see it when you get it. And then, so let's do that. Let's agree to do that.
Absolutely. I doubt it, to be honest with you.
You don't think it will arrive?
Well, no, I don't think they will at this stage, but we have something that's actually stronger than that.
Yeah, you've got your court decision.
I've got my court decision.
With you.
Rubber stamp from the Lyon court, and so have all the other guys. So that's what I'm going to be carrying around with me this season. So I'm perfectly happy with that.
But it would be nice to see.
It would be nice.
Because that would be a real climb down, wouldn't it, for the civil servants on the French side too?
Yeah, very much so. Not so well for me, yes, as well. Although I do have and have been a long time in ISTD, so I should have had it anyway.
Yes,
but certainly I think the big thing is for the other guys at the 3 and 2 level, for them to get that. They've got their court papers, so they can come back and they can start working in France again. They can do that. But if they could actually receive that Carte Pro, that would be fantastic, and then that could be out there for everyone to do.
Well, okay. Now, while we're on that subject, there's a sort of another one that runs parallel to it, wasn't it? Because you were also in court. You must have paid lawyers. I can't imagine how much money.
I don't like to think about it.
I wouldn't think about it. Well, in fact, I know the price because I've seen the other hotel.
Yes.
So I've seen the size of it, and I know roughly how much you spent on lawyers.
Exactly.
But you were running another court case parallel, which you were in legal action with the British Association of Ski Instructors.
Yes.
It's raining hard here in the Swiss Alps. We've got a bit of a storm cycle going through, and as of today where I live, it's raining. It's falling as rain, but I imagine a bit higher up, it's pretty snowy. Hopefully up the road, and our ski season really is kicking off now. It's kicking off in earnest, and we've got plenty of work to get through. But I think my guys are going to get pretty snowy in the next few days. So we'll be taking on Pete Gillespie's advice, and can these guys get some decent sessions done when it's hammering down with snow. I've got another formation day of my ski school on the Monday, which can be great to get all the team together and ski. And I've got some amazing skiers on my team this year, having seen them work and ski already. So very much looking forward to this season. I thought that it's a really illuminating interview, this first half that we've just listened to. And I think it's really, really important that Simon gets to give you a complete account of what's gone down. And I'm still shocked. I was talking to a friend of mine, Dave, about this morning. Hi, Dave, if you're listening. I still can't believe that a guy has spent a couple of days in prison just for ski teaching. It's unbelievable. In the second half, we carry on and we talk about Simon's court case against the British Association of Ski Instructors. And how that went down. We also talked then about, which I think it's very important that we try to find out a little bit more, a bit more about Simon as a person, rather than just just him, court cases and endless court cases that he's gone through. So we talk a little bit about family and his masters racing, and then at the end we talk a little bit about this process that he's gone through, this declaration process, and where to find it. And what I will do, as I promised, is I will put in the notes to this podcast where you can find Jean-Yves and get that declaration process going if you're British and you're keen to do that. So those will be in the show notes, and we'll go from there. So enjoy the second half of the podcast, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, prosperous 2020, and enjoy the ski season. I'll speak to you soon. All right, so part 2, or the next bit here that we're going to talk about. So in concurrence with that, concurrently with that, you've got another court case going in Scotland.
Yes.
With the British Association of Ski Instructors.
Yes.
Did you bring that, or did they bring that?
No, I brought that.
You brought that. Now, what were the circumstances that led... We've already talked about your mysterious vanishing MOU.
Yes.
What else led up to this moment,
well,
where you end up taking the British Association to court?
Yeah, well, it was a strange one,
right.
Because it was something I had to think about, because I didn't want to do that, but
no.
I had to get my MOU stamp, and BSki, who were issuing it to me previously, were now not issuing it to me. That I needed them to issue it to me, and having asked them multiple times, including, as when I said earlier, when I was just out of jail, which would have stopped all those proceedings, they refused to give it to me. And so really had very little choice as that was concerned, because I needed to have it. Otherwise I couldn't work. I had to have it.
Yeah.
And I was entitled to it. And the other one was at the AGM later on that year. In fact, it was in the autumn, I think.
Of what?
Of that year. That's 2000. Where are we? 2014.
Yeah.
2014.
And where was that?
That was in London at the ski show. BSki had an AGM there. Was it an AGM or just a general meeting? Oh, one or the other. But there was a meeting there, and I was told to leave that meeting.
Did you deliberately go there to make this point? Or, to say this is what's happened to me, or you just happened to be there?
They knew what would have to be, and I actually try to get to as many, especially AGMs, meetings as possible. If I can, I will go there.
Just to go?
Just to go. I
Not to kind of bang.
No, I've been to many meetings
agenda.
where I've said nothing. I go to many meetings where I'll say a lot, if there's things to be said. But no, I was going there for that meeting to want to know the reasons why, there were other points as well, but why I wasn't being issued with my MOU stamp. I was going to be bringing that point up at the end, what the criteria was.
Yeah.
What's the criteria for it?
What in previous years, have you been going to AGMs or EGMs or meetings, whatever, and trying to put across this point that is contrary to everything that they say about?
Yes.
Have you been saying, you've been having your hand up going, this isn't true, you need this, that, and the other?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Okay.
I've made several points at meetings. My very first time after I'd had meetings in Brussels, and this is like a revelation to me. This is totally opposite to what my association has been telling us. Maybe they don't know. So my very first one, must have been back in 2000.
You guys know about this.
2011 or something. I can't remember the exact dates. Was actually telling them.
Yeah.
And it seemed to fall on deaf ears. I seemed to, I had the impression that maybe the powers that be, they knew all of this in the first place. I don't know that, but I was certainly making them aware.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I would go because I knew things weren't right, and I was trying to put these points across, which I would do at the end when you have any other questions. But I would go there. So what happened at this particular meeting, and I think it was recorded on video, I was asked to leave by the acting CEO at the time, as I'm no longer a member. To which I replied, well, I am. I've only paid my subs. I said a week or so ago. I'm absolutely up to date. No, you've been. I think something. I was voted that I was expelled and I'm not a member anymore, and I had to leave.
Oh. By who?
I think it was Stephen Burke at the time.
But who voted?
Oh, it was the committee. Actually, there was one chap who I didn't know, I'd never met, who was one of the committee, who actually resigned because of that decision before the meeting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that was Mr. Linklater. I've still never met him, but if he's listening, thank you. And
Ian Linklater.
Is it? Yes, Ian Linklater.
Oh, yeah. Hello to you if you're listening.
He left on that. I wish he hadn't actually, but that happened.
So before that AGM, there was a meeting that came.
So I'm told.
Behind the scenes
Obviously,
meeting.
I'm not involved in that. I don't know what's going on.
For sure. But at that meeting, it was voted that you should be removed as a member of the British Association.
Yes.
And then you turned up at the EGM, and then they chucked you out, or the AGM meeting.
It was a meeting. Yeah, and I was asked, but I refused to leave.
Okay.
And I had, several friends in there, and people I had some people that knew nothing about any of this. That also thought this was completely wrong. How can you throw a member out? Just there and then, right at that moment.
Yeah.
I've had no warning. I've had no chance to defend myself. At any disciplinary hearing, I was just told there and then.
I would have thought that there is a procedure that gets followed, isn't there?
There would be, I'm sure. But I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a disciplinary hearing or chance to defend myself or anything. But that was the bottom line. I was now no longer a member. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened, and so that was part of the case.
All right, so we were just interrupted by the UPS man, but let's carry on. So
so that was part of the case, was getting my membership reinstated.
Yeah.
So that was also why I was having to go to court.
Because you needed your membership, because you needed the MOU and the qualifications that you qualified with years ago. Yeah.
Well, not only did I need the MOU stamp, I now am not a member.
Yeah.
So I haven't got a licence to do anything. Where do you go from there? I had to go to court.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. BSki being a Scottish company, you have to go to Scotland. Mm-hmm. So I had a Scottish legal team, and I had a QC, senior, junior, solicitor, advocate, the whole works, because this was incredibly important. And I needed to get my licence back and be able to do what I do my job. I also wrote at the same time a complaint about what had happened to me with BSki to the ISIA, who I have to say were extremely helpful, really very supportive, and they suggested that I also join another association as well. Which I duly did, and I had some assistance in doing that from one of the Italian instructors who was working for us at the time, and I joined the Piemonte College in Italy and became an Italian qualified ski instructor.
I had forgotten about this. Yes, you are qualified in Italian, but then... Well, yeah. Should we go off on this tangent? We'll put a pause on the Scottish court case. Now you have to tell me about the Italian bit.
Well, that was great. You have to go through. You have to send in all your qualifications, and which I did, and my history, which was obviously went to a government-based source to start with to see if you were actually of a level to then go through, which I did that, and then I had an Italian trainer. During the beginning of that season, come over here to spend the day with me, and we were up on the slopes, and he was going through the bronze, silver, gold progression that they have in Italy. Oh, cool! With me, and obviously just checking out my level. Yeah. And that was all signed off and done, and I duly took a while, but I duly became a maestro de ski, which was great. And I received my card with my MOU stamp. Hey, which was fantastic. Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Renouf again wrote to the Italians telling them that they shouldn't have done that and that I wasn't entitled to it, which was
in what way? In what justification would you not be entitled for it if a man has come over and checked your level?
Well, because again, the Italian Association, in fairness to them, were actually defending my case to start with. Right. But he was putting across that I hadn't taken the Euro test again, which they weren't concerned about because I'd passed before that date. But it came up that I don't know why that there was a reason.
Oh, hang on. All right, so
we were at the Italian.
Yes.
I'd applied for that, received it, and then Mr. Renouf had written to the Italians to tell them that I shouldn't be given it and wasn't entitled to it, which was a great shame.
What was his justification for that?
That I hadn't done the Euro test.
Okay.
And so, but as I say, the Italians were very supportive. but ultimately I wasn't issued that further. So I did have the card for that season and the membership number, but they had to bow down to what BSki was saying, because BSki, after all, are my home nation, they are my association, and so they had to listen to what was being told to them, and what they were being advised. So yeah, great shame that.
So that's all right. So that's twice that gentleman's name's come up, which is interesting. All right. So then, Italian tangent done. So we'll go back to the AGM. Back to the court case with BSki. Excuse me. So we were looking at. So you're in court now. You're taking BSki to court because they didn't issue you with a membership.
Yes, they didn't issue me with the MOU stamp, and they'd taken my membership away.
Yeah.
So first of all, it was that the membership was reinstated fairly quickly. The very first court hearing, I think they realised the error of their ways there, that I hadn't even been given a right to anything, to a case. So that I was reinstated, and they did announce that. So that was a great relief. I'd been a member since I was 16, so it was very important to me. So that was reinstated.
Well, especially they take away your it's a livelihood, but they're issuing you with a license. I'm going to do license in air quotes because it's just a bit of paper, right? That says, but that's where your qualifications that the MOU stamp is based on, right? You take that, pull that away, that rug away from under you. You're taking away your living, in effect.
Yes.
Okay.
So now it's the case to answer is for my MOU stamp, and BSki's defence of why they weren't giving me the MOU stamp was that I hadn't received what's the word? I said it earlier with you. The exemption.
Yes.
I hadn't been given the exemption, and which I knew I had been. I'd been in contact with Ray Morris, who was the CEO of BSki at the time, over several months and years actually, trying to get this resolved, and why my name had been on the original list and somehow ended up being taken off it.
That's right.
We talked about
that's
earlier.
Right.
I had to go to court, and that was it. So there's BSki's defence is that I hadn't received the exemption. My case was yes, I had. And I'm perfectly entitled to it. So I was the first witness. So I've basically saying much of what I've just said to you.
So this is so at this point now that you're in a court.
Oh, very high court.
High court
it's the highest one in the
High
land,
Court
in Scotland.
in Edinburgh.
Well, it's not a judge; it's a lordship. His lordship. Lord Pentland actually is overseeing this case, and so after my turn, I've seen a lot of the information that BSki have had. They have to give us all that information, and then the second witness was Mr. Morris himself, who was the CEO at the time. And of course, he was asked by my QC what this was about and why I hadn't received the exemption, to which the court was told that I had. And my QC asked, "Well, are you sure?" He said, "Well, yes, because I gave it to him. I was the CEO acting at the time." Anyway, that was my QC didn't need to say any more. Then it was their turn, BSki's turn, and they were saying, "Well, are you sure, Mr. Morris? Could you be mistaken?" And he said, "But no." And Lord Pentland intervened in the end to say, "Look, it's been made perfectly clear. He was given the exemption. It's been made perfectly clear to me. Now, have you got any other questions other than are you sure?" And we then all had a recess for 15 minutes whilst we thought things were actually going to get resolved. The lawyers were going to chat amongst themselves and this would all get resolved and I'd walk away with my MOU stamp and this case would be over. But unfortunately, it wasn't. Much to the great surprise and shock even of my legal team, BSki wanted to continue the case as they were putting forward that Mr. Morris was actually mistaken. Let's put it politely. That he was mistaken, and he also had a grievance to bear with BSki for some reason, and that what was being said was actually a mistake, and so they wanted to continue with the case. So Lord Pentland looked for his earliest date that he could reconvene, and the date he was given by his assistant, I think his usher, was sometime in April.
Right.
And I can remember him saying, no, we're not going to reconvene then because we don't want Mr. Butler to miss another ski season. We need to do it before then. And he actually said, when have I got a day off? And he was told it was some date in November. He said, right, that's when we're coming in. This will only take a short time. Is that convenient for everyone? So we were told yes, and we were going to come back, whatever that date was in November.
Yeah.
Before that happened, we actually received the judgment from France on our case from the administrative court, which we had won. And so it was then revealed to me by my legal team that it was impossible to have two cases now to achieve the same goal.
Yeah.
And that His Lordship might dismiss the case because I can now work in France.
Yes. Okay.
I can now work. So why do I need this case? So it might be dismissed. So there was a chance it might be dismissed, in which case, if it was, I could be liable for costs. But if it was run and he decided to run it, he said, you're very likely to just win this case. But my QC said, we'd never have gone into this to try and cause damage or any harm to BSki.
Yeah.
And I've never done that. For me, it's been the people running the association that have been the problem, not the association itself. Do you understand?
No, I do understand. Yeah.
So that was never the case, and I certainly didn't want to do that. And so it was agreed that we would, both parties would drop hands, and we would just settle and go our separate ways and not continue with the case. And that's what we did.
Okay. All right. So at that point, you've kind of shook hands on and said, okay, Mexican standoff. We'll both walk away.
Yes.
No one sues anyone. No one's liable for any. We both cover our own costs.
Yes.
More lawyer costs, and that's the end of that matter because the French decision supersedes.
Yes.
The other decision.
Dave, all I wanted to do was just be able to get back on the slopes, teaching people again. That was my one and only aim, and I've got that.
Yeah.
So I was okay with that.
Okay.
Although subsequently the French appealed that decision.
Of course they did.
Yeah. So I'm then in the situation where I've dropped hands and walked away from the BSki case.
And you can't bring that one again.
I can't bring it back up again.
Yeah.
And I'm in the situation where I can work, and I've won the case, but it's been appealed. And if that appeal comes through and they win, I'm stuffed. I can't go back to BSki, and I've lost in France.
Yeah.
So, I was in a difficult position. But fortunately, that hasn't happened.
No.
We're okay.
Okay. And so here we are.
Here we are.
So here we are back again. So you're teaching in France.
Yes.
Your team here comprises of what? Are you now with this blend of Austrians and?
Yes.
And
yeah, I've got one other Brit, Jay, who you've met.
Yeah.
She's ISTD, and I've got Slovenian. I have another ISTD, and I have an Austrian chap, Richie, and that's our team. I'm looking to get some of our old team back out for individual weeks, the ones that have been victorious in court.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to do that on particular weeks. I haven't decided which ones yet, but I just want to get them back out when we're busy or when I'm away to take my place, to just use, we've fought hard for this. I want, to them to be able to come back and realise what they've achieved.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and that's quite the vindication, isn't it? Now, I think that covers a quite a detailed factual account of what we've done. There's no real opinion in there in terms of what we've done. Now, where does that leaves BSki, British Association, in quite an awkward spot, isn't it? Because all of their advice, you read their website, all of their advice, there's no mention of the declaration progress or whatever, and let's say I was still trying to go down that path, and I know them because I've employed guys this season wrecking themselves, hammering themselves down Alpe d'Huez, falling over in ruts and breaking ACLs and all this sort of stuff. And all these guys that have gone before have got ruined knees.
Yeah, and spending
all this training, spending the fortune they've got to do it, and also to achieve, the level 4 technical level, which was only added in because the French wanted it. Does it leave them in a difficult spot? Sort of.
It does.
It's put them in an awkward spot.
It does, because
in terms of what they're selling to the membership.
How many people have put themselves through this, spent huge amounts of money, and most of which actually don't get it?
Yeah.
It does, but I'm getting the feel there's a bit of a new regime happening in BSki now. I know people have left or been dismissed or whatever. I don't know what's happened, but people have left.
Yeah.
There's still one chap I think in place that we've mentioned, but I think needs to leave as well. But I've listened to a few of these videos of the meetings that we've had recently, and I get the impression that there's a new regime now, and for me, I'd like to give them a chance. The new guys there, I'd like to give them a chance and see if they can take up this and move with it.
Well, especially to see what they do with this decision,
yes.
right? The latest, the
Exactly.
thing, come February, when that document that you have is rubber stamped.
Yes.
That's when that will be the decision time, right? Is it what happens to the British Association then?
That we've got the decision times now. That's just the lower court that was waiting for that high court.
Okay.
So we've got it now. What I would like to see happen is for BSki to get as many members as wish to work in France, to get their dossiers in before Brexit. Because I don't feel we're getting enough information about this. Brexit is going to have an enormous effect on British instructors. Now, my case, it's fantastic for ski instructors from all nationalities within the EU.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I want our British guys to benefit from it. I've got nothing against all those other nations, the Dutch and the Slovenians. Great, they can all use that case to come in and be able to work. But we're the guys that are actually going to be leaving the EU, and after that deadline, after that date, if you get your dossier in then, it's too late.
Yeah.
The French administration are quite within their rights to say, just send it back and say sorry.
Brexit.
We can't do this anymore. So. They're under no obligation to accept it.
Yeah.
But if you get it in before, you are in the system before that date. We are members of the EU. We come under that jurisdiction. Get the dossier in. So I urge all members to do that as soon as possible. We've got till January the 31st. That's not long.
No.
And you need that dossier in. Could I also say, Dave, and I'm not trying to promote or advertise anyone, but if you go through the BSki website to do it, they're still obviously taking their information from the very people that we've been in court against.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not going to be the right information.
No.
Now, hopefully that will change. Let's see these new guys in charge on the committee, new chairman. Let's give them a chance. But certainly, if you go onto the French website, it's all Eurotest. It's a line to nowhere. It's a dead end. Yeah. Go through Jean-Yves Lapeyrere, but I've never pronounced his surname.
It's impossible to pronounce, isn't it?
Yes, I know. Go through him. It's France Plein Air.
Yeah.
And that is the way forward.
I'll leave
Please
a link
put a link
in
on
the
that.
notes to Jean-Yves.
You'll need to join that association. It's only a few euros, but he will create your dossier. And it's not an easy process. You have got an awful lot of things that you have to have and fill in. But every member from 2 upwards will have that. So there's all sorts of other things you have to have. Obviously same as us, medical certificates and these sorts of things. But get it all into him ASAP, and he will do it the right way. Yeah. And you will get registered. And that's what I'd like to see BSki doing, telling the members this.
Yeah.
The latest information I've had from BSki is that they don't want to comment because there's a decision coming out sometime in the spring. That's too late.
Yeah.
The main decision has been made.
Yeah.
It's now, it's current. please let's get those members in.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I will link people to some way of contacting Jean-Yves, because, like I say, he's been successful with you. What you say about the declaration process is accurate, and it's very important. I think it's important that people know that it's very, very hard to get that process correct yourself. It's exactly what you said earlier. Like, if it's not perfect when it goes in, they don't need any second chance to send that dossier back to you, right? So let's let that go through a professional. In essence, it doesn't cost very much. The documents in themselves aren't very difficult to get or put together. I know this, through having also done it myself. So okay. Perfect. And then, like I say, the proof will be in the pudding to see how the advice from the British Association changes.
Absolutely.
Or doesn't. Because that's the accusation that could be levelled to them in a sort of not in this new environment. That I also like the direction that they seem to be going.
Yes.
But in the old environment, it looks very much like, to me, certain vested interests would go along with the advice that the French
were giving them. Yeah, absolutely. And that isn't the way we want to carry on. We are an association of all the members, no matter what level. I've had problems with people spying on me on the slopes when I wasn't able to teach, trying to find out that I was teaching, which I never was. People taking pictures of me and reporting back. Our CEO at the time writing letters saying they've spotted me teaching. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. I've seen, other members watching each other and telling them they shouldn't be able to teach. It's awful. Let's work together. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And, certainly in the past, and obviously everything moves on, but there are some things from the past which were so much better. If I saw somebody with a BSki badge up, you'd go over and shake hands. How are you doing? Maybe have a drink later. Hi, great. Now it seems that we're all sort of spying on each other and trying to report somebody. That's awful. It is absolutely tragic. Let's get away from that. I hope, and I get an impression that is where the new direction of BSki is going, and I very much hope so, under the new chairman, and let's see that if that happens. Yeah,
I like their ideas, I have to say, at the moment. It does seem, well, we'll see. Good, all right. Now, can we humanise Simon a little bit? Can we ask you a little bit about something else?
Yeah.
You do a lot of masters racing.
I did.
Or you have done since your operation.
It. Yeah, I loved it.
Tell me, did you raced when you were younger?
No.
Okay, so you got into this recently?
Yeah, I was. I've been skiing since I was 6. I was up Sandown Park, which was great for me. The dry slope. I was there every night after school, and I used to do all my holidays in the Alps somewhere. Yeah. And I took my BSki exams. I was 16 in the December, and I passed in the January.
Amazing.
So, and then I was off and away. I just went straight off, and so I've been doing it, full time since then. I got into.
You've never done anything else? That skiing's your life.
Yeah. I do lots of other sports. I love it. Love it all. But that's been it. And I got into the racing a few years ago, having turned 50. I thought I'd give that a go, and I just wish I did it earlier. I absolutely loved it, and I was. Apparently I looked good, but I was just slow.
Oh, it's all about looking good. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
But I'm now trying to, funnily enough, work out of all the things I've been trying to do, all this precision and almost looking like a robot ski instructor. I'm just trying to get rid of that, which is probably going to be impossible, and to just think about trying to get fast. But I had a hip replacement, and I've had a few bad injuries on shoulders and things, and I haven't raced for 2 years, but I'm determined to get back to it the following season. Okay. But my main focus is my children and their racing, which is far more important than mine. Yeah,
let's talk about that, because your kids, I just met them. They're lovely. Met your whole family now, actually, and the dog, which is great. And they've just come back from Pilar training there.
Yeah, they've just had a couple of days there. I unfortunately couldn't go, but they've been over there for 2 days. They've got a race there early next month, so it was a great opportunity to train on the piece they're going to be racing on.
Okay.
They're back training. We'll probably have a day off tomorrow, and then we'll be back training. From now on all week. We bring a teacher to continue with their education.
Really?
We bring a teacher over here for the season. So they have their academic stuff in the mornings, and I'm out skiing with my guests, and then I finish, I do a morning session, I come down, we have lunch, and then we all go off training.
Oh wow, so they're homeschooled in effect?
They're homeschooled in the mornings here,
during the summer?
During the summer they're back at their schools,
their regular school,
and we have time off and obviously summer holidays to get out and do our snow training.
Oh wow.
We had we had 9 weeks on snow during the off season this year.
Good Lord.
Yeah, they're going very well. It's a great journey. We're loving the journey.
Yeah.
Hopefully it goes, where we want it to, but it's we're going to enjoy the whole process.
How does the academic side? There must be other people in your situation. I think that's really interesting. So how does that the sort of, I'm at school 6 months of the year, and then the other 6 months I'm kind of doing my own thing. Do they? I suppose I want to say, do they keep up? They're the schools are great. So what happens? There are 3 terms at school. So they're there for the term from Easter holiday. When we go back from Easter holidays, they're there until the summer holidays, and then I forget what that term's called. The one going into Christmas. So they do 2 terms. Michaelmas term, isn't it, or Lent? Anyway, they do those 2 terms. Yeah. And then the 3rd term, the one from January through to April to Easter, they're here. Oh, okay.
And so our teacher that we have here, she goes to both of their schools and links up with their head teachers and gets the curriculum for that term from all their individual teachers. And she brings it out, and that's what they do. Yeah. So, they do that. Some days, for example, we might get a miserable day that's pouring with rain, and rather than half day, they'll do a whole day.
A whole day, yeah.
And then we've also got other days where we've got some fantastic conditions, and I've got a piece that we've got permission to use, and I can get the gates on, and we'll go all day.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bit swings and roundabouts, and because she's just with us, it's very adaptable.
Yeah.
As long as we can get those hours in each week, that's what we do.
I think there's a lot of dead time in schools in general anyway, so I think a solid morning, you probably get quite a lot done anyway, can't you?
They're not doing PE in games. They're not having their break. They have we're getting in just about enough, and we've gone into the schools when they've gone back to find out how they're doing, and because we've been doing this a number of years now, and they've been very happy. They've said, actually, if anything, they're up. So there's no problem. We can continue like this, and you can keep it up. Then they're happy.
That's a great way of doing it, isn't it? Okay. Oh, that's some useful information for anyone else out there that's in a similar situation.
Yeah.
That's almost a variation on those sort of sports schools that they've got, isn't it? There's some in the Valais, I know, and there must be some in Austria as well. Like if you're selected at a certain level, you have to go to a special school where they do mornings, academics.
There are some clubs that are doing it. They've just come from doing a bit of training with BSA over in Vila. Who are fantastic. Malcolm runs that, and they do a great job. And the kids go out there and stay, and they have their education and come back. We can't go over there because it's just a bit too far to go all the time through the tunnel and back. And back. So we're doing it here.
Oh, okay. And so, in terms of plans for the future of the business, I suppose now all this is behind you. I'm jumping back into the topic of this. How do you carry on from here? So you're presumably you're going to build your business back up to where
not really though now, because my focus is predominantly with obviously on the business, but with the kids, and as they're getting older, that's becoming more and more important. So I don't actually want to get back and get any larger again.
So it's a nice size.
Time. I'm actually spending less time and handing it over to others to do, so I can be more focused on their training and their racing. That's really where my journey's going with them now.
How does that sit with you? This sort of handing off of responsibility kind of thing. Is it
I suppose
it's tough to do sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult at times because it's something you've built up. But no, it's good. And when you've got like I used to manage all the hotel and all of that sort of thing, which was chaos. When you've got people that are better at doing something than you, let them get on with it. And,
couldn't agree more.
And that's it. And that's what I do. And so all I really do now is just my little bit of teaching on the slopes, and let other people run this, and I'll probably wind that down even more as I'm focusing more on the children. So,
cool, that's great. All right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think you've given me all the answers, and we got a document on record for what we wanted to say. Yeah, I can imagine. Like I say, let's. Will you will come back to me when we've those cards and stuff drop through the.
Well, I'll give you an update.
Post, but yeah, please do. And but for now, we also do everyone has a chance to kind of promote their business on my podcast. So, is there anything you want to promote? Now's a good time, and tell me where to get in touch with you.
We're SBSki.com. We're based in Megeve. If anyone is interested, like to come, we're here.
Okay, and we'll also link also to Jean-Pierre for anyone who wants to get in touch with him.
Yeah, Jean-Yves.
Oh my God, yeah, Jean-Pierre.
That's difficult. Jean-Yves Lapeyrere.
Yes.
Lapeyrere. I know, it's tricky.
Sorry, Jean-Yves.
I can never spell it correctly either.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy. But luckily, and for all those speaking to him, he speaks beautiful English. So no problem. Good. All right, Simon. Thank you,
Dave, thank
so
you for
much.
coming.
It's been
Pleasure
really,
to see
really
you.
cool, and I'm glad we managed to do this. So, see you.